Hey Vince, welcome back to the SABM podcast.
Thank you. My pleasure being here. Appreciate what you've done for so many veteran entrepreneurs and nonprofit leaders yourself.
Yeah, man, and you're the resident nonprofit, thought leader, person that understands the business. That whenever I come across somebody that has a nonprofit or they're in the space, I was like, oh, you got to meet Vince.
I've had
um,
so many great conversations thanks to your referrals and references, and it's such a great community to help. So thank you for this partnership and SABM Vet 10X and just the privilege to be your nonprofit expert.
the nonprofit expert. So, well, here we go, my man. So maybe just to kick things off for this podcast, certainly would love for you to introduce yourself to the group. Folks that may haven't met you yet, they may not be familiar, with what you do. Would love to, um, you know, for you to share that, and then we can dive into this idea that you have and this new group that you've built for the conscious impact leader, and defining what that is and stuff. So, but maybe just to kick off, Vince, man, just an intro, who you are, what you do, and then we can dive in from there.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm a West Point graduate, 91. And after a 26-year career, I was fortunate to retire as a full colonel. And that was 2016. So this July is coming on 10 years of being a civilian. And like 2 years into my retirement, I really struggled trying to find the right community to be a part of. I really entered into entrepreneurship with that trusting handshake honor, where I kind of got caught into some business partnerships that weren't as honorable as you'd like. And so that's how I found myself to
Mm.
SABM and Vet 10X. And that's why we find ourselves in veteran communities, because we do want to have that high integrity call right from the beginning. That's the thing that we all come for. And so I appreciate you and for how you've created community that is trusting, that has high integrity. And really, conscious impact leader starts with integrity, just like that does. However, uh, my journey, especially through COVID, we met on a sailboat like almost 5 years ago. We were with Jeff Jernigan, and I was partnering with him, a Citadel graduate in 91. And we began really in earnest helping nonprofits as a nonprofit advisory. And I started to see with all of these social impact missions, just numerous reps. I got so many at bats with so many clients over 8 years of nonprofit advisory. And as I grew spiritually, COVID really brought me face to face with my own struggle. And I had been diagnosed with PTS for deep loss because I had deployed 3 times. And over 8 years, I missed my son walking.
Mm.
Just so many beautiful events. Just I couldn't talk about my family without breaking into tears. And it was a struggle. And so I went to Boulder Crest Foundation's Warrior Path, and I learned about Stoic philosophy. I learned about grounding myself, transcendental meditation. My wife, a minister, we started to really move into Center for Spiritual Living and Science of Mind, and really started to learn about spiritual economics and setting intention and knowing that there's a good God in the universe that wants to give to you abundantly. You need to announce that with intention. And so I really grew in consciousness out of my own survival. And being a nonprofit leader uh, and growing in consciousness, I realized that there is something key to our fortune beginning within ourselves. And we've read Think and Grow Rich with Napoleon Hill from the early last century, and Ernest Holmes, Science of Mind. And there's all of this great writing from the early last century that really talks about that what you, whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve, Napoleon Hill. And that, riches begin with a state of mind. And so my appeal to beginning Conscious Impact Leader last August with a virtual mastermind, and then in April I started a face-to-face group every other week down here in South Florida. So we have Conscious Impact Leader South Florida, and we've essentially piloted um, 8 sessions to take people through conscious foundations to clear the field. And I can give you a whole overview of that. But the bottom line is that I found something missing in myself, and I saw something missing in others, both small business leaders and nonprofit leaders, that they may have had a limiting belief, or they may have had scarce thinking or a fear that was really not only holding themselves back, but holding their entire organization back. And if we can do the inner work, we can also work on the business, we can build process, we can get the right people, we can scale with AI. And AI best practices are a part, it always comes up in all of our conversations, just like, your conversations where people are talking about leveraging AI. So, the technology is part of this, but we need to do the inner work. And I guess the last point on this is that in the military, we really learned that hard work is honorable, that we white knuckle it, that entrepreneurs have to really work hard. And what if the missing pieces flow, that we let go and let God, that we understand that the tides go out and the tides come in, and that we really declare an intention of abundance and prosperity can flow back to us because people see our passion and purpose, and then they are attracted to us. So a little bit of law of attraction too, where when people see your purpose and passion, they're attracted to your mission, and then revenue flows, donations flow, and then everything works out for good. It sounds a little bit easier, but we can practice it and it really works out.
Yeah, you've touched on a lot here. So we've got some stuff to talk about. Hey, let me just shut the door here. So I got the dog running through the office. So give me one sec. All right, there we go. I need to be able to focus. Um, so yeah, you touched on a lot of really, deep topics. And I believe, I can speak to the entrepreneurial path, and I do believe it's a spiritual path, right? It's not always or necessarily about like making as much money as possible and whatever, and certainly that's great, and we have those ambitions, but it really I mean, especially if you're bringing a product or a service to market that you really care about, right? It's like, wow, like I feel like I was built or put on this earth to like be a conduit or create, you know this thing that maybe helps people overcome a challenge that I had, right? And so I do believe that there's a very spiritual aspect to it, especially when the business that you're building or the nonprofit that you're building is tied like directly to your purpose and why you're here. So, but then it's really hard to get those products to market, right? And to like get people to buy them sometimes, right? And it's like this whole odyssey that you go through, from beginning to end, if it ever ends, right? It's but and you're constantly tested. So I do believe any sort of creative act is definitely a spiritual journey, for sure. And I guess my question or a follow-up question so I just wanted to share that. I mean, I think it's right on
Yeah,
the
that's
the SABM
spot on.
website, like entrepreneurship is a spiritual journey. I put it on there like 8 years ago or 9 years ago.
Hey,
And
we're validating that today. I agree.
okay, so just wanted to share that. But then I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit, based on kind of the community that you've built. And you touched on like, hey, people have limiting beliefs, or they might have a fear, or, what have you seen in conversations that you've had with folks in your community, and maybe just also in your own life, of like, is there a common limiting belief, or is there one that you've seen a few times and you're like, wow, like maybe you could share what that is today, if you don't mind. And I'd love to
Yeah,
hear
I mean,
maybe like how do we kind of
yeah,
overcome that?
when you start talking about limiting beliefs and you start really tackling it for yourself, but then you start listening how others speak. And then it becomes like, you like red VW bugs. So now every time you drive, you see every red VW bug. Well, you start seeing everybody's limiting beliefs. And then you're like wanting to jump on them like a pit bull. And two of the common ones are money. Just anything around money is
Okay.
fear-based and limiting. Like my mother said, money doesn't grow on trees as you walked out of the house with a $20 bill to fill the big Chevy Impala, 1972 Chevy Impala gas tank, which I can't imagine what it would cost to fill today. Or self-worth, like I will start that when I get an AI certification, or I
Mm.
will start that when I get another degree, or let me do the Harvard certificate class and then I'll feel qualified to do that. That's all the law of self-worth. And
Oh.
every Tuesday for Conscious Impact Leader, we do the conscious laws of impact. We do a law every Tuesday at noon for free. And we just did one today, the law of the straight line. It talks about how millionaires make money through their capital, and they have a 5-35-60 split with that. But most people are in the 90% earning their own money. So we talked through all that. But, even if we go back to Christ's consciousness and like the parable of the talents, like Jesus said, to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And a lot of people think of that verse as being a physical thing, like the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. But if I turn that inside into your mind, that to everyone who has, if you think optimistically and faith filled, that you will be given more and have abundance. But if you think from lack or scarcity, then even that will be taken away. So it's not about like what we have in the driveway right now. It's about what we have on the inside. So when we created the Conscious Impact Way, the first session is conscious foundations. We talk about law of circulation. We talk about spiritual intelligence, which is like emotional intelligence. And then session two is clearing the field. Like you have a full cup, we got to take something off of it. So let's clear the field of your limiting beliefs. Let's declutter your house. Let's declutter mentally. Let's declutter emotionally. Let's close open cycles. The law of open cycles says that for every new project you start, let's close out an old project. So, in
Mm.
order to take your cup runneth over in Conscious Impact Leader, we take stuff out of your cup so you could be open to some new ideas and start doing some inner work. And people are like, I just came to a business mastermind and I want to work on my business. It's like patience. We're going to get there, but let's do some inner work first, and then you're going to see the fruit later.
Well, I mean, yeah. So that I mean, you touched on a lot of things that yeah that I've learned over the years, like decluttering and I the reason why we're on doing a podcast today was like you were scheduled for one thing and then it's like hey I want to I think we'd have more impact doing this podcast and just kind of a small example there and there's so much that goes into it and we're constantly learning new things as I'm sure that you are and I'd imagine that a lot of people do come to you first and, they want the result. Like, hey, I want to, you know, whatever the exterior goal is, but that exterior goal often doesn't get accomplished without, first, first the interior work. Right. And so, and that part is so important. What would you say, I guess as it relates to the conscious impact leader, what, some of your goals are, for that, over the next, 6 months, 12 months, maybe some short-term goals of how you'd like to grow that community and continue to develop it. But then maybe also some longer term goals, as you look down the road, 3, 4, 5 years from now, where do you see it going?
Yeah, I believe we've created a community. The Conscious Impact Leader is for small business leaders and nonprofit leaders. So it's an exclusive community where in the same room, folks can bring their purpose or their passion together and they meet profit. And where higher consciousness meets higher economics. And so I see a unique place where some people are like running a successful business. They have profit, but they don't feel fulfilled. How many small business leaders are like really like knocking walk-off homers when it comes to revenue, but they still don't feel fulfilled? And then how many nonprofit leaders like go to bed every night feeling fulfilled, but they need more donations? So it's
Okay.
like if we can put together the small business leader and the nonprofit leader in the same room, and then we can start to harness passion and purpose for profit, then we start to see some really good results. What do I see in a year or two? We'd like to have a conscious impact leader workshop. We'd like to have a 1 day all day seminar. I guess we're in South Florida, so we'll do it January or February and get everyone down here during the winter. But it's a it's a Tony Robbins-esque abundant thinking packed with speakers and good music to get people to the point that they're tackling their limiting beliefs and they're making decisions and commitments, creating intention, and declaring affirmatively what they're going to do. And they're running out of that workshop, knocking down brick walls. And let's address limiting beliefs because it's like I have a limiting belief. My mother said that money doesn't grow on trees. How do I get rid of that limiting belief? Well, you have to call it out. So you call it out. It's like, okay, I recognize I have this limiting belief. My mother used to tell me all the time, money doesn't grow on trees. uh, Take care of this money. And I am calling that out as a limiting belief. And then you change the mantra that I understand that money is currency and currency flows, currency that flows from high tides to low tides. As I see the ocean, I see abundance of money, not because we print it because of, our currency, standards in the US, but we have an abundance of prosperity and it flows into me and it flows out as I create relationships, as I create business, as I create partnerships. This money comes to me abundantly. So I don't realize that money's scarce and it grows on trees. I declare money as being infinite, as it that it's there's enough for everybody, and that the universe brings it to me as I build relationship, as I create community. And that's how you can flip a limiting belief to something that is now working for you and not working against you.
Yeah, and just as it relates to money, I mean, I really liked kind of what you said about it flows in, but then it also flows out because for how many people, probably me included, over the years, right? Uh, it's flowed in maybe, but it's not flowing out, right? Like, hey, like you're setting all of these goals and writing down these affirmations, like, oh, I want to do all these great things financially, but then you have like bills that you haven't paid, like sitting on your desk, because for whatever reason, right? Like, so, hey, pay the bills, write the checks, let it flow out to other people, and bless them as you write the checks. And so, I think just the discipline of letting money flow out, whether it's just a simple example like that, or if it's through philanthropy or whatever it might be, um, keeps money in circulation. So I think that's really important. But then also how hard it is sometimes to let it flow out. Like, oh, I need this, right? I might need it for a rainy day.
Yeah, there's some donor advised funds nowadays. And as people make money, they put money into like Fidelity Charitable or Raymond James Charitable. And they have a stack of money. Say they got an influx of money and they said, hey, we put 50 or 100,000 in a Fidelity Charitable. The donor advised fund statistics that are coming out now are showing that the give rate out of the DAFs, donor advised funds, is only 9%. And the requirement is to give 10% every year. So there's a lot of folks that are getting the tax deferral, tax deduction by putting a large sum of money into a charitable fund, but then they're not dispersing it. Why is that? Well, they don't know what they want to give to. Nobody's asked them to give to them, and there's a lack of communication. So on the nonprofit front, we have a nonprofit leader toolkit in the Conscious Impact Leader school community where you can register for 13 DAFs and you can get your name out there. So now the money may flow to you. And all the ones that have done it, they've at least gotten one check in the mail from a DAF. Likewise, if you're the small business leader and you have a DAF and you know your purpose and passion and you have alignment with what your true heartstring is, what breaks your heart in this world, then you can find the nonprofit that you want to give to. And now you're creating true legacy. And that's why I believe the small business leader is important to this entire ecosystem.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about your concept of where higher consciousness meets higher economics. So there's this thing up, like the starving artist, right? Hey, I'm like, I love being an artist, and I love, painting these beautiful paintings or making this music or whatever it might be. Or, like, hey, I want to start a business, around and help somebody that I care, solve a problem that I care passionately about, and then there can be this limiting belief of like, oh, if I do this, I'll be like the starving artist or whatever, right? How do those two things converge and connect? Um, and I've kind of gone through this a little bit just with the stuff that I do. It's like I don't a lot of it. I don't do it necessarily for money. I do it because whenever I fell short in my career, where I was like disengaged and wanting to like change jobs or whatever it might be, it was because I was surrounded by folks that um I felt like I didn't connect with them. I didn't have the same challenge that they have or the same mindset. And so a lot of the work I do today is centered around people that want to start a business, and want to grow their business and are, went to a service academy or veterans because that's like who I was, and so I have a lot of conversations day to day, week to week, and happy to help people out that are, have that as a goal or a challenge and that sort of thing. Um, but where do you kind of like, what would be your advice to somebody that might be searching for higher consciousness or might have a creative idea, product idea, service idea, nonprofit idea, whatever it might be, where they can follow that path, but then make it like so it's sustaining, like so that there's like it pays the bills and does more than pays the bills. You make a fortune like helping people
Hmm.
that you really care about helping. Like, what would you say to that person of, number one, I guess you've said that it's possible, but what would be some maybe blocking and tackling strategic
Yeah.
advice you could give to somebody that where there might be a limiting belief standing in the way, or they might be afraid to like send somebody an invoice because like, hey, I would have just helped you for free or whatever, right? Whatever it might be. What kind of advice? I'd love for you to share that advice because there probably are folks listening that may not be sure that they can create a living based on what they're really truly passionate about. And I'd like you to maybe convince them that they can, and they can make more than a living, from
Yes.
that, pursuing that idea.
Yes. I mean, so higher consciousness meeting higher economics and this concept of purpose and passion. My wife is a reverend doctor, and during COVID, we created the sacred activism community. And Andrew Harvey created the term sacred activism. And really, it boils down to that which breaks your heart, go out and serve and fix that problem. And then community wise, if you can find 5 to 8 other people that have the exact same heartstring of that which breaks their heart in this world and join together, you can actually move the needle on that issue. So really everything stems back to you and doing the work within. You know, again, I said earlier, your fortune begins with you. If I'm talking straight to the listener, there's the law of consciousness, and it says you can determine your outcome and you have your hand in your own destiny. So you can take charge of your own life. And if your passion and purpose is your true calling in life, if it's your true purpose and what you're to fulfill, you know, your soul's mission, well, the universe is going to honor that. And you are going to create wealth that is greater than all that you've ever expected. And you're going to have abundance and prosperity. So it really comes back to searching your own heart and finding out that which breaks your heart, and is that truly your passion and purpose? Again, back to the numerous nonprofit starts, hundreds of nonprofit starts. I've probably started a nonprofit in every state. I started a nonprofit in Florida yesterday, but the phone call was from Puerto Rico, and we did that with a West Point graduate, young Max Wiseman, leader of character, uh, Max Wiseman fame. And so, you know, he's creating Operation 22 Resolve. And so, you know, it's like it breaks his heart. He wants to stop veteran suicide. And so now he's creating a nonprofit and he has a business for a biometric AI bracelet that's going to help give biometric feedback to veterans, and we're going to save lives before they knew that we had to save them, if you know what I mean. We're going to get ahead of it. So, you know, when you can really harness that which breaks your heart into a passion and purpose, and we get that first part right, then I have no problem getting you to the finish line. But how often do we rush to business creation, Scott? How often do we rush to skip over a few steps? And then maybe the nonprofit's struggling. So if I talk to a nonprofit and they're struggling for revenue, sometimes I'll back up and say, well, let's go back into your governance model. Let's go into your compliance model. Let's see all the steps you skipped over and let's like patch those up and let's build some momentum because, again, to use your brethren's Navy SEALs term, you know, slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? You hear the Navy SEALs created that going through urban environments. So let's slow down. Let's slow to smooth and smooth to fast. Let's slow down so we can speed up. And let's get the inner work right where we are harnessing that purpose and passion. And then we're allowing flow. We're allowing universe to honor the fact that we discovered our soul's purpose. With Conscious Impact Leader, I don't really have a bar for someone to come in. Like you need a minimum of this amount of revenue to come into Conscious Impact Leader. So I've found myself working with people that are out of work. There's some people that are unemployed, and there's people running successful businesses, and they're together. And how do you help the starving artists? Well, they really usually have their passion and purpose down. They need some
Mhm.
structure. They need to understand, well, what if we build a community around your passion and purpose and people became your fans? My talk Friday was going from obscurity to influence. Like, how do we get you to have 100 people that love you, that you have 100 strong fans? How many really active members of SABM or Vet 10X do you really need to keep things going? Like how many people showed up in Charleston last week that keep things going? Like how many people
Yeah.
did you have?
Yeah. So we had about 30. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's not these hundreds and thousands of people. It's like to have a strong fan group. And I'm sorry I couldn't get there. I was pushing Cynthia off to Spain. She's walking the Camino right now. And I had two dogs. I almost showed up at the hotel with two dogs, but you might have been mad. But no, my heart was with you guys. And so, you know, it doesn't take but a few dozen people to be fans of your purpose and passion to create community around it and now start to build some momentum. So I believe the starving artist can benefit from the successful small business leader that says, hey, here's your next step, here's your next step, here's your next step. And then slowly over time, we're creating partnership where it's like, hey, let's do a starving artist workshop. Let's have all the starving artists show up. No, let's have set up a table and let's have a community fair where everybody gets to see all the great work that the starving artists are doing. And they need that kind of support. But there's folks that are gardening, that are building butterfly gardens down here. They're building home food courts where people are essentially growing all their food in their own lot of their home. And there's these gardeners that are doing it. And they're like, I need to teach a class to make money. I want to teach like a hemp class. And it's like, okay, let's do that. And it's like, well, let's fill it with 10 slots. So it's just constantly seeing. I believe the starving artist has the purpose and passion. And I believe the small business leader has the steps. But sometimes a small business leader needs to really plug into that purpose and passion, say, okay, I'm building a great business. I've been very logical about it. I'm very, Spock oriented. Like this isn't logical. It's like, and then really move from their head to their heart and then start to see how the starving artist leads from their heart, and then to have some head heart gut alignment where it's like, hey, we could actually create a partnership. The business leaders now like opening a conscious coffee house, and the starving artist is like, well, I'm the coffee connoisseur, I'll be your barista. And now we have strategic partnerships are very key, and I think we all can grow together through that as well.
Well, thanks for breaking that down for us, Vincent. It's really cool to see when that does come together, where somebody's art or their purpose, that they bring it into creation and they get paid for it, right? And so because that keeps it circulating, right? It enables you to create more art and to create better art, right? And so um, I appreciate you connecting those dots for us. Vince, what connections are most valuable for you? So as the folks are listening to this, who can we connect you with? Who can we introduce you to that would help you move the needle and achieve your goals?
Well, I'm continuously starting nonprofits for folks. I still enjoy doing that. I'm helping nonprofit leaders either re-examine kind of where they're at and to take stagnated revenue to a new level. And I believe that it all starts with compliance, governance, a little bit of board development, getting people on a structure where maybe we expand their board. I've been getting into equine assisted learning and, a lot of veteran and first responder work with horses, numerous nonprofits that are in the equine assisted learning path, a lot of youth development, but really any nonprofit in the veteran space, I usually get a phone call on. And I believe the nonprofit leader to come into conscious impact leader, they have enough safety net, enough support structures like, hey, I'm working on this. Can you give me a hand here? And there's obviously the answer there. And then for the small business leader, I like to think that I'm not just a coach that's coaching people. I'm actually doing the work myself. So I have a service disabled veteran owned small business. It's called Secure Path. And I have authorized dealer and reseller agreements for health and safety products for the government. And one of my neatest wares is the Illuma Pure Clean White LED technology. This is a light bulb, Scott, that sanitizes the surfaces it shines on. It has no blue light. So what they call it's 405 nanometer wavelength that cleans surfaces, and 470 really brings good color and contrast to the work surface. And so the combination without any 450 blue light is healthy for you and it's more cleanly. And so the entire government, every agency, every skiff needs this light bulb. And it's been around for 14 years. It used to be cost prohibitive, but now the technology is to the same cost as a normal LED light. So I'm really passionate about that, if you can't tell. And so I have a service disabled veteran owned small business. So I'm doing the work. So I'm not just a conscious impact leader coach on an ivory tower pedestal that's like, oh, I've done everything. Let me help you. I'm actually doing it as well. And so if any small business leader is curious about starting a service disabled veteran owned small business, I'm happy to work with them. And then this final concept is unique. It's about sovereignty and tools for sovereignty. And last spring, April of 2025, I realized that for 8 years I had been doing nonprofit consulting in a stovepipe, and I've been buying Bitcoin personally. But I never spoken publicly about Bitcoin and what how sustainable it could be for small businesses and nonprofits. And now, in 2 weeks on June 19th, I'm going to have a face-to-face session down here in South Florida about tools for sovereignty. It's going to include educational concepts about a Bitcoin treasury. That what if you put 5% of your treasury to Bitcoin? What if you dollar cost average new revenue 5% to Bitcoin? And then over time, with that commitment, uh, you would have something in 3, 5, 8 years, something so sizable, it may be bigger than your current business. So I've been in Bitcoin for 8 years, and I often look at my Bitcoin treasury and realize I don't have to work anymore. I want more people to look at their Bitcoin treasury into the future and say, wow, I'm glad Vince talked about Bitcoin in 2026 because we're still early. And actually, Bitcoin, if you want to check the charts today, it's on sale big time. So I'm a big believer in Bitcoin as a scarce asset of only 21 million, and it being the future for digital gold, and the fact that we're printing money to the extent that Bitcoin's the only thing that's really a reliable store of value. So again, that's educational. It's not financial advice. I know you have investors that are constantly saying that. And I'm an educator. I have a PhD in education, and I'm happy to educate. But, it's a full circle moment where when I start to realize my experience for the last 8 years, and I'm like, wow, I've never talked about Bitcoin, but it's really benefited me. When do I start talking about how Bitcoin has really created generational wealth for me? When do I start talking about it? Vince, you talk about it now. And so I've had nonprofit leaders take Bitcoin to the board to get approved for 5%, 4%. I've had small business leaders talk to me about starting a Bitcoin treasury and just giving them concepts. And I believe this podcast isn't about Bitcoin, and this isn't the true end state, but it's definitely something that's part of conscious impact leader community where we try to educate folks more to be more comfortable in the space.
All right. Thanks for sharing that, Vince. And one last question for you. And I mean, you mentioned a number of different books that you've read over the years as, as you've referenced different things that different authors have said. It sounds like you've spent your at least 10,000 hours in the self-help section, as of have I. And I know there's probably people listening that are going through their 10,000 hours in the self-help section. They're trying to figure out who they are, right? Like what they want to accomplish, how they can accomplish it. And it takes them to like a lot of the types of books that you mentioned. Could you offer like maybe, I don't know, like what's one or two that you're like, hey, I bet, I mean, I know a lot of people have heard of Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich and those, those types of books, but has there been one where you're like, hey, I bet the audience hasn't heard of this one, but it was like really good, really cool.
Well, it started me down the path to conscious impact leader, and it was a course called Spiritual Economics, and that's the title of the book, and it's by Butterworth, and it's a science of mind text. It was a reverend in religious sciences, and he really created a book on how you create your own fortune from within. And you have to treat like the first few chapters are about limiting beliefs. So it's like, man, this entire podcast has talked about limiting beliefs. Well, a lot of people don't want to deal with them, but if you're stagnant, if you're a small business leader and it's like a little too lonely out there and you've tried all the options, it's like come to Conscious Impact Leader. Yeah, we'll do a little bit of work. We'll struggle well together. We'll have some breakthroughs and we'll get you to the next level because we'll do this together. So it's kind of like getting through Ranger School together. It's kind of like going through, SEAL training together, where it's like at least I had my buddy to my right and left, and that's how I got through that really hard training. So, let's do the work. let's read Butterworth Spiritual Economics together. There's reality transurfing, which is a mind-blowing concept of a medical metaphysicist out of Russia. And that's really the PhD of where we're going to go one day. But I'm not really addressing that. But reality transurfing definitely had my mind blown, and it definitely called me to action. So you're laughing because I guess you've heard the term.
Yeah, Bill Militello had me. He read that one, and then we did a retreat in San Francisco, so I was reading that while I was on the plane to
Or
San
the
Francisco.
audiobook is not bad too.
It was the audiobook. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
the unaudible. I
Yeah,
was
I mean,
listening
but
to it.
that will call you to action. And it really the pendulum, the work with pendulums, and like I just got to get out of this open cycle that's not helping me. And really for those listeners that are feel stuck, that kind of feel like they need to do some house cleaning mentally, emotionally, physically. They need to clear out some limiting beliefs. They need to close some open cycles. They need to really have a breakthrough. That's what this group is for, to do a little bit of work, and to have that breakthrough and to create generational wealth together. And so I thank you for having the opportunity to be part of your group, and I'm sorry I missed the conference last week. This is what I would have talked about anyway.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, it's been great having you back on the podcast. Spiritual economics. I haven't heard of that one, but I'm gonna check that one out. I appreciate you sharing that gem with us. And Vince, what's the best way for folks to learn more about what you do and get in touch for people that want to connect with you after they listen today?
Yeah, any email or text. I'm at Vince at the beacon for the number four today.com. The school link, I'm sure you'll have the school link in there so people can come join, check out the community. We have three different levels. We have, a free level, come to the community, join the Tuesday Laws call, learn a little bit, put a toe in the water. We have a premium version. So on Thursdays, we do the classic mastermind, like what issues do you have? What do you need help with? I also talk about a various topic there for about 10 minutes. And then we have a VIP level, which, hey, I want more help. I want to work with you weekly. And, we have that level. So the school community is a great place to join to learn more. And I'm very accessible and I'm very available on the school community.
All right. Well, thanks, Vince. We'll link to your website, the school community, your LinkedIn profile as well on the show notes so people can easily connect with you. And thanks for being a guest on the podcast today. And here's to an awesome finish to 2026.
Yes, sir.